How you doing, folks? It's Wardy here. In our latest Big Mets update segment, we're going to highlight how the Mets are one of four major market teams aggressively pursuing Alex Bregman, the free agent market. We're going to highlight where this report initially comes from, how credible it is, and then from there, we're going to deep dive the pros, the cons, everything you need to know about Alex Bregman and his game. Why does he at all make sense for the Mets and David Stearns and their active pursuit versus maybe why he doesn't make as much sense as some other players available in the free agent market. From there, we'll get into his fellow teammate the past number of years in Houston and Framber Valdez. Now that Kyle Tucker has been dealt there from the Houston Astros to the Chicago Cubs, Valdez, along with other pieces, could be on their way out as respective rentals. Could the Mets be the best landing spot for Valdez among other pitchers in Major League Baseball that are going to be dealt this offseason? We'll highlight his game, the pros and cons, and everything in between as well. So let me see your initial reactions, the comments down below to it all. Thank you guys so much for smashing a like and subscribe button. And also thank you so much for hearing from our amazing sponsor here at BetUS that has you covered with all your sports betting needs. Head over to betus.com.pa today, folks. That way you too can use Wardy's promo code YouTube150 and get a 150% bonus on your first deposit, $125 on your second and your third, up to $2,000. And folks, we are doing a nice two-leg NFL parlay this weekend. I'm hammering the Pittsburgh Steelers to make sure that they either win outright or make sure that they don't lose more than 5.5 points in Philadelphia against the Eagles in the Battle of Pennsylvania. And as a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, I'm very excited. I know we don't have George Pickens this weekend, but I'm holding out hope at our great defense and that Russell Wilson, Mr. Unlimited, can get the job done. And we have also the Chargers there at -150 money line to win outright in their game. This is a $20 parlay that's there to win 43, so hopefully a $63 turnout or so should both these teams win in this respective bet. Please know I'm not a sports betting expert, so if you guys tail this bet responsibly, but make sure you bet here with our amazing friends at BetUS. Shout out once more to them for all your sports betting needs, everybody. And now let's hop right back into this discussion and let's get into the latest here, starting with the obvious and Alex Bregman, because Alex Bregman is a guy who I've openly spoken on the channel of recently. I've told you guys that I've not been an optimist in the pursuit of Bregman. Should the Mets do it at all this offseason, I think that there are more cons at times with Bregman than there are pros. After doing a further deep dive on Bregman and his game, however, I have warmed up more to the idea of landing him, but I do see some things that could be little bumps in the road, ideas as to why I could still see Stearns not being the top aggressor for Bregman in the end. And we're going to highlight all that right here, right now. Because on the forefront, Alex Bregman, again, the peripherals are fantastic. Again, another strong season there. Arguably his best defensive season in his career there with a +8 on the differential per Fangraphs, with a over 4 WAR this past season, a 260 average, a 315 on base percentage, and a 453 slug, with a just under a 120 WRC plus, so around 20% better than the average batter in baseball. Bregman with 26 home runs, 75 RBIs, is a year removed from north of 100 RBI season with the Houston Astros. He's a 2022 World Series champ with no cheating scandal. He's a 2017 World Series champ as a sophomore in Major League Baseball, and with the cheating scandal, he has been through endless playoff runs. He has been to the World Series what feels like almost every single year since he has entered the league. Very few players have more immediate experience than he has, and he has a lot of potential to any team that has the luxury of landing him this offseason. And as we see from this initial report from Ari Alexander, I initially scoffed at the notion of talking about this report because Ari touched on the Mets pursuing Alex Bregman over the past couple weeks, but with the Soto sweepstakes going on, and also with not knowing Ari officially, and after doing a deep dive on him, I will say that he is more credible than I initially thought. Ari Alexander covers sports there, of all things Houston sports, out of a local station in for NBC in Houston, so that is where this report comes from. And in said article, he notes how the Mets are one of 4 teams as he likes serious aggressors here, along with the Houston Astros, in trying to bring in Alex Bregman. They are paired with the New York Yankees, the Boston Red Sox as well, and yes, the Detroit Tigers have been in that mix because of the long-lasting relationship between AJ Hinch, in which he started his career, that being Alex Bregman with Hinch, up until the cheating scandal became public a couple years after 2017, and then bam, Hinch is away from the game for a year, then he returns with the Detroit Tigers as a fantastic skipper for them, scandal aside. Now, Alex Bregman, there are plenty pros and cons I want to get into when we highlight his game. As you guys can see here through his baseball savant numbers, they're not at all bad. You see the 81st percentile in the fielding run value, 66 in the expected batting average, 90th that we see there, 96th rather in squared up percentage, chase percentage 82nd, 98th in whip percentage, and 94th in K percentage. even for a guy who only had a 315 on base percentage, which I will say is very underwhelming from being in the 365 range the past 2022 and 2023 seasons. Bregman had a slow start to the year, as is the case with a lot of Mets hitters in April and May, and then really blossomed from there, batting over 300 throughout the majority of summer that we saw, heading into then September, where he cooled things off around the 250 range. But Bregman, what do I see? A guy who's unbelievably disciplined there with his plate approach, however, had a bit of a loopy swing that we saw in the first half of the season, and need to really hone in on his strike zone and making sure that, again, if he's not striking out a lot, why is he not having success? Unfortunately, a lot of balls weren't flying in the right direction for him, and there has been some things about Alex Bregman that I'd like to clear up about his game, because and one thing that I first think about right away with Alex Bregman and everything that you get from him is, one, the defense has been around a league average, if not better, this past season. He deserves endless credit, which is why he's in the 91st percentile and outs above average. And that's quite contrasting to there in the, I believe, 6th percentile or so. And Mark Vientos defensively this past year in the hot quarter. Vientos was notoriously one of the worst defensive third basemen in Major League Baseball, while Alex Bregman comfortably won a Gold Glove there out of the American League in 2024. You're not only getting championship experience there in Alex Bregman, but you're getting a guy who's still very much in the peak prime of his career. You're looking at least another, hopefully, 3-4 years of getting fantastic performance, quality performance, hopefully championship caliber performance out of someone like Alex Bregman. Now, as we continue on with the pros here, he does fit the MO for David Stearns in this notion this offseason that, the Mets do want to bring in a more defensively reliable third baseman that can play up not only offensively, but defensively there at the hot corner in this win now stage. That's why the Mets had reported interest in Willy Adames as a third baseman. That would shift Mark Vientos to either first base and or DH, depending on the return of Polar Bear Pete Alonso. And depending on if the Mets would be able to comfortably bring in both Alonso and Bregman, I think goes in hand with my personal belief as a fan with what I would like. Because yes, I think you can make the rightful argument. Listen, if it's a debate between Alonso and Bregman, Alonso is a homegrown talent. He's the franchise leader in a lot of ways. The slugger, that's the guy you got to bring back, because even though Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is a very enticing option, should the Mets not bring back Alonso and go after Vladdy next offseason, I'm all aboard with that, I'll tell you right now. If the Mets don't bring back Alonso, I say go for short-term stopgap options there at first base, like a Santana, maybe to a lesser degree like a Goldschmidt, to a highest degree in a Walker, but your Christian Walker is going to want still a 2-3 year deal at least. I think anyone on a 1-year deal that again can handle first base and be fine there, assuming that you don't have Vientos as your full first-time first baseman there, is fine. Then you go heavy for Vladdy. But should that not be reality, and should the Mets have heavy interest in bringing back Alonso, well, we have heard at this point, I'm in more favor of bringing back Alonso than I am going after Bregman. But if we're talking about the scenario where, as this is a fantastic quote from Ari in his piece here, states to end the article, it says, and the following, everybody, that I want to highlight for you all, is that, after the Juan Soto signing, those within the industry characterize the Mets as more interested in getting what they want than trying to adhere to any sort of budget. That means if the Mets really do want Alex Bregman, they're going to do whatever they want to land Alex Bregman. The same can be said there with Polar Bear Pete Alonso. Now, naturally, they're not going to act like drunken sailors, especially in the case of Bregman. They have to make sure that they're smart, they're strategic about spending for a guy that's already at the age of 30. So as you look at how he is likely to project for the remainder of his career, that is yet to be seen in the case of Bregman, especially outside of Houston. But what we can note, and I think is also important to highlight in all this, is that Alex Bregman has proven his ability to be a perennial championship-type player on a championship-type caliber team year in, year out there in Houston. And a big debate that we have seen has been, okay, if the Mets are willing to bring in Alonso and Soto, what else are they willing to do on the offensive end? Now, I've been under the understanding, rather, that would be bringing back Jose Iglesias, maybe, if God willing, if we could bring back Jesse Winker in a lesser role, because say you trade one of Jeff McNeil or Starling Marte, with Marte being the more likely of the two as of the latest report suggesting that. That's great, fine and dandy, good. But if you're going to bring in Alonso, if you're going to have Soto, which we already have, you might as well continue it, right? Go after Alex Bregman, sign him to a deal in which the Houston Astros currently have a contract offer reportedly at 5 years, $156 million. That is not far off from what Alonso is projected to get this offseason in the $150 to $200 million range based on the term and AAV there for Bregman. That's a respectable AAV, and while I don't love 6 years, pardon me, I do, however, love 5 years, and I wonder if the Mets are willing to kind of go leaps and bounds above other teams on AAV, maybe even on a shorter term end, and that would be appealing for Bregman in this win now stage for the Mets. You know, this is, again, just 2 years removed from the Mets going hard after Carlos Correa. We saw how those sweepstakes ended up there. It wasn't for a lack of effort, just 20 doctors saying, hey, Steve, you're not going to want to invest long-term in this ankle. It's cooked, and you're going to want yearly physicals where that could directly dictate the future of Correa and his contract with the Mets. In the case of Bregman, there is upside here, and I certainly see that, while I also see the downside. But before I highlight the downside a little bit more, I think most Mets fans would agree. The idea of Polar Bear Pete Alonso at first, Mark Vientos as your everyday DH, if David Stearns proves his willingness to have a everyday DH as the same player and not a rotating door, which is what I've expected at this point, especially with the uncertainty to Marte among others. Should Marte be traded, that helps obviously negate that thought and go more in favor of one guy at DH. But if we are going to solely have Vientos at DH, and that's okay, that's where we want to commit to him, go bat first, have everything there with Alonso at first base, and then go to Bregman at third, that is as powerhouse of a Mets lineup as you can get, a pair with Lindor, with Soto, with Vientos, obviously, that we already spoke on, and Alvarez, and Nimmo, and everyone else in company. You really can't ask for much better there from the Mets with what they could do externally this offseason. Now, when we look at the notion of, okay, Alex Bregman is a Houston merchant, this is something I've also been under the great impression of for a period of time. However, after deep diving the numbers through Baseball Savant, I come to find that over the past 3 years, if we exclude the 2018 and 2019 seasons where everyone was raking thanks to the juice baseballs, that's why whoever's investing in Bregman is not investing on those years, but is investing on what he has done the past 3 seasons, postseason, regular season, cumulative, everything combined there. A great postseason hero, a multi-time, World Series champ, a heavy multi-time World Series performer there, where he's at least been in the World Series because he's been there, it feels like, every single season, at least every other year on average throughout his career, for the most part, is what's felt in the case of Bregman. But you also have the notion that since the 2022 season, 2022, 2023, 2024, Bregman's home run totals, those individual seasons, would be the same exact amount as if he played all games in Citi Field in 2022 and 2023 and 2024. If you want to be anal about it, I'm 1 home run off. There is, I believe, in the 2022 season, if it was 22, then it would have been 23, or vice versa, between his overall season and then at Citi Field. But the point I'm trying to make is that the home run splits aren't nearly as drastic as I initially made them out to be. Alex Bregman, if he played every game in Houston in Minute Maid Park this past season, he would have had 5 more home runs, 4 or 5 more, going from 26 this past season to 31. However, if you look at the stats with Citi Field and their dimensions, it would have stayed at 26. So what does that lead me to believe? Given what you'd be investing in Alex Bregman over the past 3 seasons, you'd be essentially getting that same turnout, or at least the hope of the same turnout in your ROI, your return on investment. I think that actually makes more sense for the Mets in this pursuit. I understand it more from David Stearns' point of view. I understand the reluctance to want to have Mark Vientos at the hot corner every day, knowing the lack of defensive upside there, and knowing that they want to put out a championship caliber team to the best of their magnitude next season with the Juan Soto officially in the fold, knowing you only have so much of a window in the prime years of guys like Francisco Lindor, Brandon Nimmo. If you bring back Pete Alonso, him too, among others, again, if you can bring back Alonso and bring in Bregman, I'm in favor of it. If it's one or the other, I have more skepticism with going Bregman over Alonso, even though I will say I am all aboard Vladimir Guerrero Jr. in that pursuit an offseason from now, just like what we did with Juan Soto a year ago to now what is present day. So that's everything that I have to say about Alex Bregman. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below on the latest, as the Mets are one of 4 key teams reportedly interested in Bregman and his services. But now let's go from talking about Alex Bregman, everybody, to breaking down a pitcher who I've absolutely really been a big fan of for a number of years. But the main reason as to why I could see Alex Bregman not coming here, however, and this actually, before I, Framber Valdez is what I was about to say. Before we highlight a little bit more on Framber Valdez, I did want to highlight one final thing on Alex Bregman, going in hand with the cons. Are you in favor of the Mets investing 5+ years at 150 to 170 million for Alex Bregman, which is what it's going to take based on his market right now? Or are you more in favor of in-house options that the Mets may consider outside of Mark Vientos and Luis Angel Acuna and Roddy Mauricio, who's finally started baseball activities per David Stearns, and some other options that the Mets have internally that they may defer to over the next couple of years? Are you more in favor of in-house, or do you like the, again, wanting guys that are MLB ready right here, right now? Brett Beatty, who I didn't even mention yet, do you want to give him an opportunity again, or would you rather invest in what is a surefire guarantee of what you're getting at minimum and at maximum? That is a great question there, and the multi-time World Series champion and Alex Bregman. I can't even really use the Houston impact as a con and why to go after Bregman, because I further refuted that based on what recent numbers have shown us. I mean, there is some skepticism with the size of Bregman at just around 6 foot and how he'll project more long-term at third base, and I understand that too, at his range, and also just how he'll handle being a great all-around player. But in the case of Bregman, I see both the cons and I see the pros. I'm in favor of him at the right price, but not a guy that I think I would go absolutely scorch earth to try to land the way that the Mets did with Juan Soto. But as we get now to Framber Valdez, everybody, I like Framber Valdez quite a bit. I've been a fan of his for a number of years, and for good reason. Here are the savant numbers for Framber Valdez: 94th percentile in pitching run value, 88th in fastball run value, 96th in breaking run value, 75th in expected ERA, 86th in barrel percentage, 99th in ground ball percentage. So basically, as long as we have Francisco Lindor, we're going to be in good hands up the middle. But that further proves, again, if you're going to say target a heavy ground ball pitcher, in which the Mets already have some in their rotation, but if you do it again, potentially in a rental option of Valdez that you would trade for, it would actually make further sense to go after Alex Bregman, sign him to a deal, make sure Vientos is playing more DH if you can hopefully bring back Alonso as well, have the best team possible to field for 2025. You do that by signing Bregman for the defense as well to pair with Valdez. And Framber Valdez with a sub-3 ERA this past season, he has consistently been a workhorse. The past 3 years, Blake Bregman has put up pretty respectable numbers, right around the 3 ERA range, if not sub-3 that we have seen. He has pitched over 200 innings over the past 3 years, and he has pitched at least 170 innings each of the past 3 seasons, which with this past season being the least amount that we have seen over the past 3. But still, Valdez, even with some health scares that we have seen in recent years, he's a workhorse. He uses that sinker, curveball, change, slider, four-seam beautifully. That sinker, I think, would work greatly with Jeremy Hefner, Desi Drew School in this entire Mets pitching lab, similarly to how it worked greatly with a guy in Sean Manaea that we saw this past year working up in the zone. Valdez, a dominant southpaw. You'd acquire him essentially to be that Sean Manaea replacement, and at $12 million, he's at great value right now if you look at his contract as a rental. But the biggest reason as to why I could see the Mets not acquiring someone like Framber Valdez, who, as mind you, is right around league average in the walk rate, 3.3 walks per 9 to just under 9K per 9 this past season. He does get hit hard, however. When he does get hit hard, he doesn't get barreled all that much, but when he does get hit, it's going to be hard hit, and it's going to be leading to a home run, if not a deep fly out, whatever it might be. Again, a lot of average exit velocity for a guy that sits around 94 miles per hour there on the sinker and the four-seam fastball. The four-seam he doesn't use because it's basically a meatball of a pitch, but that changes with his pitch shape at all with this Mets pitching lab. I wouldn't be opposed to that. But the main reason why I could see the Mets not landing Framber Valdez, and is why I'm not going to overly highlight him until we find out more reports that, oh, the Mets are actively interested in Framber Valdez, is simply this. David Stearns went heavily after Garrett Crochet before ultimately landing with the White Sox because he fit the shorter long-term bill. 25 years of age with multiple years of control and could dominate this rotation for north of the next decade should he stay healthy and be fantastic. The case of Valdez, at already 31 years of age, a lot of innings on his arm, including tremendous playoff performances, including playoff no-nos as well, a World Series champion. Again, when you look at a guy that knows how to dominate in crunch time, there are a few that I would want to rely more on than Framber Valdez come postseason play when he's at his best, especially in a pitcher's park like Citi Field would only bode him so much better throughout half the season there at Citi Field versus being on the road. But Valdez, why I could see it not happening again is because of the fact that he's a rental. David Stearns scoffs at the notion of really going after guys that are rentals, knowing that you have to give up key prospect capital, and he'd much rather give up key top prospect talent in return for controllable talent where we know we have a guarantee at least more than a year with said player. I think that's respectable. I understand that. And I think when you look at the current pitching options out there, still led by Sean Manaea, Walker Buehler, Nick Pivetta in the qualifying offer, which means that you'd have to give up a 3rd and a 6th round pick should you sign him still. Those are potentially more appealing based on the dollar amount alone versus versus what you have in the trade market. But Valdez is a very intriguing arm for the Mets to consider. I don't think he's a slam dunk at all, but if the Mets do swing a trade for a rental piece, keep an eye on Valdez as he's one of the more appealing options. I think Jesus Luzardo makes endless sense on the control, a guy that's going to cost you less than Garrett Crochet coming off of an injury-riddled down year, right up David Stearns' alley, but the Cubs are in deep negotiation as we speak with the Marlins for Luzardo, so we'll see if that happens or not. It's going to crush me if it does, but again, the Cubs may have a big overpay on their hands in the case of Luzardo trade-wise, and we'll soon find out what happens on that front. With that being said, everybody, thank you so much for watching. Let me know your biggest takeaway on Alex Bregman, Framber Valdez, and which of the two are more appealing for you for this Mets team right now, which of the two are more likely to happen in your opinion, and ultimately, are you in favor or against Bregman and or Valdez at the end of the day to land with the Mets for 2025 and potentially beyond? That'll do it for your guy Wardy. Until then, everybody, have a fantastic rest of your night, day, evening, whenever you're watching this. This is your guy Wardy signing out. Let's go Mets, baby. Peace.